The last two characters in the final hours of Jesus were the two men who were crucified beside him. Now the Gospels say that they were thieves, but knowing Roman practice, these were no ordinary criminals. Because you see, we learn from the way the Romans did crucifixion, it was a deterrent. And so the people crucified were either hardened criminals or political agitators. So the chances are that the two men beside Jesus were zealots, or maybe even sicari, those religious fanatics who fought so hard against the Romans. They would cause the so-called Jewish wars about 40 years later, which brought the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. Those two men spent the last few hours with Jesus. They saw the kind of man he was. They saw the gentleness and the lack of hatred or vengeance against his enemies. They heard his prayer that God should forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. And yet the two of them had different reactions. One of them said to Jesus, "If you really are the Son of God, if you really are the Messiah, why don't you come down from the cross and deliver us as well?" The other man had a different reaction. He tells his fellow prisoner, "Look here, you should not talk to him that way. We deserve to be crucified. He has done nothing to deserve that." Then he turns to Jesus. He says, "Will you please remember me when you come into your kingdom?" Now this answer of Jesus has generated a lot of unnecessary theological debate. But essentially what Jesus said to him was, "I promise you today you will be with me in paradise." That is a promise that he made to this man, that no matter what, he has experienced redemption. He has experienced the grace of God at the lowest moment in Jesus' life. Just before he died, Jesus saved someone. But you see, throughout the Gospel of Luke, he had made a point of that the Son of Man came into the world to seek and to save the lost. That he came for the very kind of people like this zealot dying next to him. But those two men also made their choices. One of them chose to ridicule, to make fun of Jesus. He chose to question the ability of this so-called Messiah. The other one chose to surrender himself to the graces and the power of this Messiah. And so the thief on the cross, this criminal, this zealot on the cross, experienced salvation at the last moment of his life and at the last moment of Jesus' life. For you see, the mission of Christ was exemplified in the choices of those two men. Yes, Jesus came to seek and to save the lost, but he cannot save people who choose not to be saved. And so the question for those two men was to choose or not to choose, to paraphrase the famous words of Shakespeare. One chose not to be saved and therefore died in his misery, in his anguish, with all the pain that crucifixion brought. The other one chose to experience salvation. He chose to accept the Son of God into his life at the very last minute. He never had the opportunity to demonstrate his saved life. He never had the chance to show people that he had been converted, but he got the chance to be in heaven with Jesus. For you see, that choice to be saved or not to be saved is a choice. The grace of God is free. Salvation is a gift, and we can accept it by making that choice. And that choice is, I believe, what the New Testament calls faith. Faith is not some illusion, it is not some sentiment. Faith is a choice we make to be saved or not to be saved. And when we do that, we can experience what that man on the cross did. The grace, the power of God at work at the very last minute of life. Have a good week. God bless.